Welcome back to Business and Politics. We're talking to Mr. Richard Mills of the Asia CEO Awards. I want to circle back quickly to what we were talking about in terms of the cost of doing business here. I was wondering if that has to do with the talent pool, right? That we've sort of maximized those who are, I suppose, first tier, right? And whether that has to do also with maybe the attention we need to give to English education in the country. I mean, you've been here for many decades. Maybe you're a better person to ask whether our ability to communicate well has improved or remained the same or has deteriorated over the years since you've been doing or have been visiting the Philippines.
Yes, it did dip a few years ago, a decade or more ago. It was, but it's really come back strong as people like they see there's opportunities for employment, and good English communication skills are key. So yes, so it has come back strongly. So it's
well, the backdrop to that is that all of these discussions among people in the education circle, and they're in a panic mood these days because of how poorly we rated in the assessments test. But when I look at the outsourcing sector, obviously there's still a sizable talent pool there. Although we have to look at the future, right? And maybe fix things that we need to fix in education, right? But I was just wondering how concerned the BPO sector in particular is about the ability to supply that so that it continues to grow in the future.
It's a concern, but they've adapted, and they have a lot of. Even my friend, Dr. Bernie Villegas, the economist, he talks a lot about
the profit of boom.
Yes, occupational training.
Sure.
So rather than teaching kids, I don't know, philosophy and literature, teaching them real job skills. And so the big companies in particular, they're very good at online training and all kinds of classroom training and so forth. So I think it's making up a lot.
That's
for
interesting.
sure. For sure.
Well, I want to segue now to maybe how you see the future of work and how it will evolve, right? Because things have changed, since the pandemic. Certainly for our company, the way we report to work is vastly different from the way we did that before the pandemic. I was wondering what other trends you're seeing now that you think will maybe stay, right? What changes did you notice from the pandemic, and maybe how does that impact businesses and also people who want to have lucrative careers in the future?
The great thing about it is it is exploded into the countryside.
Okay.
So many people who worked in larger communities, they were able to speak to their employer and say, well, if you hired me directly, I could work from home, and it's working fantastically. So the impact on, particular single mothers and mothers in general who have a hard time, the travel to and from work often might be an hour, sometimes 2 hours one way. So how can you have a family and so now they can work from home.
Okay.
In the hours that they want it. They need to take a day off or two for child rearing reasons. No problem. So that has been a tremendous opportunity, and reaching the people in the countryside, because the talent is not being maximized from what I'm hearing yet.
Okay.
We're nowhere
all right,
close.
So we're not topped out yet.
Nowhere close.
Okay. All right.
And a big reason is because we're now able to tap into all of these millions of people in the countryside.
Okay.
So. And again, the demand is for, young people in the world, young, eager people. Again, they have the right attitude, the mindset. They want to work, they want to learn. They'll teach them the skills. So, so that is, so it's really expanded the labor pool and the opportunities for Filipinos. What has changed is, at the top, management people.
Okay.
How are you going to manage managers who work from their home? And I'll give you a funny kind of story. A couple of people I know run, large operations, and they always put, what they call spy software on, as a legal requirement, right?
Sure.
They don't use it very much, but when they did discover, well, how are our people working from home? What are they doing? And they find out that too many of their staff are only working 5 or 6 hours a day when they're
Sure.
paid to manage 8 or it should be, 10 hours a day. And the number of hours they're spending on, social media and doing bank transactions and stuff like this. So it's an evolving thing.
I see.
And we don't know exactly how it's going to go.
But does that impact somehow on productivity? Because
Well-
in our office, our concern really is we know that we can't watch the guys, right?
Right.
Work. So we gave up on that and just basically said, okay, what do we want them to achieve
Yes,
on a
yes.
daily basis, and then maybe use that as a benchmark, and rather than counting the hours and making sure that they're actually working, right? So we've given that up and just say, okay, just so long as you produce a certain outcome,
Correct.
You're good. But is that the mindset of the
It
people?
is the mindset,
Okay.
but it's all over the map.
I see.
But yeah, but that's one very good reason. If they're producing and they're only working 5.5 hours, then it's okay.
All right.
Or is it?
Okay.
Are we getting, as a company, where we're paying for, we're supposed to be getting 8 hours and they're only, I don't know. So it's a real evolving thing, and
Right.
where it's going to end up, who knows?
Yeah, so when you say that people are working from home, especially mothers who are doing that so they can be
Yes.
with their children, is that going to be the trend moving in the future, or is
Absolutely.
that a temporary thing that
No.
you think that we'll go back to? You think we'll go back to the way we were and everybody has to be at the office, or is this here to stay?
That will never happen again.
Okay.
I mean, there'll be so many people, it just expands your workforce so
Okay.
much. Philippines, another big advantage Philippines has is women. Because,
Okay.
the female participation rate
Sure.
in the workforce is far higher here than it is certainly in Asia, but in almost every country of the world. The global, the gender gap index
Sure.
of the UN, Philippines is right at the top. So that also adds to
I see.
the workforce. And if they're
It's an
able to
advantage,
work from
right?
home,
Yeah.
in the hours that they're
Yeah.
able to work, this is huge, Clint. This is a huge change.
Does that change fundamentally how you do the search? Because obviously, you're looking at other
Okay.
qualities here, right? Are you looking
Yes,
for
okay, good point.
older, more mature, more responsible people who would tend to be more disciplined, right? To stick to the routine, or is it the same that you're getting people right out of school so long as they're qualified and just
Well, good,
What's
good.
the
Good
sense?
question.
Yeah.
That's the stereotype that older people are more disciplined,
Sure.
allegedly. Not all are, though,
Okay.
we know.
Okay.
But the other thing is the younger people, their advantage is
Okay.
they're much more attuned to technology.
I see.
And very quickly they can get on to some new
Okay.
thing. So it's a real
There are
mix.
trade-offs, right? Okay.
So you really
Okay.
need a mix of people.
Right.
The older one and the younger ones. But the key thing is you need people who are self-motivated.
Right.
People who don't need to have a boss over top them, watching over them.
Right.
People who are focused on achievement
Right.
of things rather than just putting in their time.
Right.
So that's where it's changed.
Right.
So
What are
It's
the
interesting.
changes in that you've noticed maybe in a higher echelon, maybe in the C-suite, in terms of the Filipino talent? Are there changes that you've noticed since the pandemic on what skills are more desirable now than others? Are there anything that we should any trends that we
Well,
should be
you wanna know
paying
what I've
attention?
seen?
Sure.
over the past, especially during the pandemic, is the expats.
Okay.
Right? Guys like me, or look
Okay.
like me, or people think look like me, but they're not needed so much anymore.
Oh, okay.
And I'll tell you the reason is the Filipinos now are working at global levels.
Okay.
Not enough in every industry.
Sure, sure.
But they're up there now.
Right.
And because they tend to be a bit younger, they're a bit more attuned to the technology, social media, and on top of it more. So they were able to replace
Okay.
many of them,
I
many
see.
of the expats. So, like I said, I keep saying we're moving into a golden age for
Sure.
Philippines.
Sure.
This really is what's going on, so what we got to do is make as many Filipinos able to perform at world-class levels, and they're going to be paid at world-class levels. Because I can tell you, when they replace the expats, they're
Right.
not being replaced at a lower salary. They're taking over the expat salary.
Right. Are you doing any placement around the region, Or is it mostly
do.
from like North America and elsewhere in Asia coming to the Philippines? Do you do outbound placements as well? Companies looking for, hey, Richard, any good CEOs from the Philippines for a particular sector? Is that happening at all?
We haven't seen that. Although I know when I speak to my friends in the hotel business, they say, Richard, most of my problems are because of Canada.
Okay.
And I said, well, because they know I'm Canadian, they say that. Now they're joking, but the reason is because so many people are leaving the industry here
for Canada.
Yeah, they feel like they're just training academies for the Canadian tourism industry.
Sure.
So many people are going as Canada.
Sure.
Canada's a big country, lots of space, so a lot of people needed to help fill up the space.
Sure.
But for most of what I see happening is the jobs are coming here. In most cases. So they want Filipinos to be able to perform at world-class levels.
Right. And then how are, you mentioned that, we're desirable and we're replacing the expats, but what particular qualities do you think stand out? I mean, I'm interested in, what kind of skills need to be harnessed or need to be developed more, I suppose, to retain that demand for Filipino managers. What are some of those qualities you think that should be looked at?
Okay, well, if we go again to my business process outsourcing, knowledge process, that industry, one criticism I've heard from guys and gals from many different countries, Japanese people to Europeans, North America, whatever, is they say, Richard, my Filipino staff here, they are the top. Our company, we have, they have offices in different that are ranked in terms of productivity, right?
Sure.
The Costa Ricans, the Indians, you name it.
Sure.
And Filipinos are at the top or very close to it. So when they have, the calls, conference calls with all the representatives from the different countries, Philippines should be doing more of the talking because they're the ones with the best results.
Sure.
But they allow themselves to get talked over top of. By the Indians, by the Americans, by whatever.
Yes.
And why is that?
The culture, or?
I think so.
Okay.
People just, Filipinos
are not very confrontational, right?
And another difference is, like if you talk to people from India or China, say, not to pick on them, they're great countries, but if you talk to people from and you ask them, well, is India a good place to do business? Are Chinese hard workers, or whatever? They'll say, yes, we're number one, and we're really smart, and we work hard, and Filipinos will never say that.
Right.
Because they're more
Asian and more
they
humble.
They want to be humble and so forth. Now, but when you're on a call or in a meeting with people, to stand out in a large country with 1.5 billion people, you've got to be loud, assertive, you've got to aggressive and so forth, interrupt. And
that's not very natural for Filipinos.
It's not very natural for Filipinos. So we don't want Filipinos to become obnoxious. Being pleasant is what everybody likes about them. But just a bit more assertive and so forth. So that's one thing. Another thing I hear is, Richard, the same thing. Richard, my Filipino team are top. We rank them in the world and they're among the top. But when I ask my team leaders, what is it you want to, where do you want to be in 5 years in your career? They'll say things, well, in 5 years I'm going to work very hard and I'm going to become a manager.
Sure.
Rather than saying, what they should be saying, I'm told, is I want to be a vice president or the CEO. I want to take your job.
Sure.
Right? Because that's what they should be, because they're good performers.
Right. Again, that's not very natural for Filipinos. Right.
Whereas the Indian guys, they'll say, well, yes, I'm going to take your job and you're going to go home and I'm going to sit in your seat. Right? So this is what we need Filipinos to think bigger about themselves and assert themselves. Again, but still retain all the good parts. Not easy to do.
Not easy to do.
Okay? But this is what I've heard time and time again.
Well, that's very interesting. We'll just have to take a quick break. We'll be right back with Richard Mills of the Asia CEO Awards. Please stay tuned.